Juz 18 starts with Surah Mu'minoon declaring the ultimate success for the believer, the one who is fearful of Allah SWT, does not waste time, pays his zakah, is modest, keeps his word, and is mindful of his prayers. 12 onwards is a mention of the stages of human life, from an embryo to its final end up to the day of resurrection. Verse 16, before moving on to signs of faith in the heavens, the rain, vegetation, plants, fruits, cattle, the ships sailing the seas in 22. The surah at this point makes a reference to Nuh AS and other prophets who faced similar objections just like the prophet when his community called him insane and a liar. Contrasted with this attitude is a believer who is fearful, believes in Allah's signs, worships Him alone, and spends from his wealth with awe in his heart. 60. 91 is a strong appeal to the disbeliever, stating the impossibility of multiple gods. Allah does not have a son, nor is there another God. If that were the case, then every God would have gone to war with each other to establish supremacy. Yet the disbeliever turns away and continues stubbornly until he meets his fate on the day of judgment and cries, "Remove us from here. Let us return." With the final verses of the surah affirming Tawheed, it closes with the dua, "Rabbi ighfir warham wa anta khayrul rahimin," 118. Noor ayahs 4 to 10 specify the details of the mandatory punishment for adultery and then the ruling and consequences of slander. Then providing details around the slander of Aisha radiallahu anha and her innocence up to verse 20. 21 to 31 are the rules of conduct to reduce the temptation to sin, such as seeking permission before entering other people's homes, lowering one's gaze when meeting the other, and covering adornment. 32 onwards are the rights of slaves. Marriage is encouraged and prostitution is prohibited. Verse of light is in 35 before moving on to a reference to the hypocrites, contrasted then with the attitude of a believer in ayahs 47 to 55. The surah concludes by speaking of the proper manners within the home, such as teaching children to seek permission before entering rooms. 58 is the discussion of the ruling of hijab for older women. Then in this passage is also the requirement of seeking permission before leaving the presence of the Prophet, the proper manner of visiting relatives, friends, and then finally the proper way of addressing the Prophet, concluding this surah with a stern warning to the hypocrite. The juz concludes with Surah Furqan, starts off with addressing the Quran as Furqan, that which distinguishes between the truth and the falsehood. The surah then refers to the absurd remarks against the Prophet ﷺ in 4 to 10. They wonder why he eats food and goes about the streets and marketplaces. 11 to 16 talks about their denial of resurrection, then consoling and reassuring the Prophet ﷺ. Even before you, we never sent messengers other than men, who indeed ate food and went about in the marketplaces. We have made some of you a means of testing others. Are you able to endure with patience? Surely your Lord sees all. Verse 20.
من أجبت دعاء نوح فانتصر وحملته في فلكك المشحون يا من أحال النار حول خليله روحا وريحانا